this edition of CTQ Smart Levers, and today I have Sirisha with me. Hi, Sirisha.
Hi, Harish.
And today we're going to talk about the dilemmas resolution framework. This sounds like a framework that I should be using when I'm trying to pick between two ice cream flavors, chocolate praline or mint chocolate. Is that right?
Yeah. So a dilemma is actually a choice between either two positives or two negatives. Okay. So it's not a choice between a positive and negative where the decision is obvious, right? A choice between two positives or two negatives has a lot to do with the context. And our dilemma resolution framework that we have built is we are actually helping organizations be deliberate about their culture building and resolve all these dilemmas that exist in their head. It could be a choice of, do we want to be a pro sports team or do you want to be a happy family? It could be, you could be anywhere along the spectrum, right? You could be some of these and some of that also. So we help organizations resolve those dilemmas, which actually helps them deliberately define the kind of organization they want to be. So see how powerful the dilemma framework is, right? It will help you right from making a choice of ice creams all the way till defining an organization culture.
Right. So let's go away from the ice cream analogy. We'll come back to that later because it's too tempting, not to talk about it. I'm already salivating. But coming back to the context of culture building, can you talk more about how did you come up with this dilemmas resolution framework and how have we used it in our work?
The start for this dilemma resolution framework was when I was studying in the US a few years ago during my fellowship. And that's when we had the opportunity to work with a lot of companies. And observing cultures of companies there, we realized that a lot of deliberate actions are done by companies, right? So if so I was interning with Zappos. So if somebody was talking about customer obsession, you actually realize how many things are done around the customer obsession space to call that out as your culture or your value. So from then the whole research work started, and it took us many years to actually put the whole thing together. And today the dilemma resolution framework has about 40 dilemmas covering different aspects of business. So starting with the strategy, the desired identity, the kind of outlook the founders have for the company, to how are decisions made, how does execution happen, how do we deal with our people. So there are 7 such areas under which we have all these 40 dilemmas there. And resolving each of these dilemmas helps everybody align in the organization, right? So we do this resolution exercise of these dilemmas with the founders and the key leaders in the organization. And that's where you realize that it also brings a lot of alignment for them. Some of these things they wouldn't even have defined or discussed internally earlier, right? And everybody moves with their own assumption of how things should be in the company. So this dilemma resolution framework is what we're using with a lot of growth stage companies today. And we take them through workshops to actually help resolve all the dilemmas. And the output of it is a beautiful culture handbook and a manifesto, which is their own. It's about their culture. It's about how they want to build the organization. And it's all explicitly laid out. So you're not leaving anything for chance, or you're not letting people who are joining the organization guess how people should be treated, how feedback should be given. You don't want those things to be done. That's how the framework helps.
Right, yeah. So, 3 things that stood out for me in what you were saying. One is obviously the fact that at the end of these dilemmas resolution framework sessions, the so called elephant in the blind man problem will be solved, right? Everyone knows where is the trunk, where is the tail, where is the belly. So that's going to be sorted out among the leaders. And the other important thing that I took from what you said is that this is their own culture, right? It is not something that they are sort of transplanting from elsewhere. It's not something that they have read in books and they're saying, okay, let's install this as of yesterday, which is how I've heard a lot of founders talk about. It's great, in my opinion, that some of these books and some of these culture code documents have brought this topic to the fore. People know about it, but it would be foolish to sort of try and install that in your system. So I think what you are doing here in these dilemma resolution workshops is just getting people to come on the same page. That alignment is something which is very important. So anything that has come out of your experience with running these workshops where something has stood out for a customer, you may want to just give talk about something that people have said to you. We can, anonymize names and keep this on record but off record.
Yeah. So, what is culture, right? Very simply put, it's about how people behave when nobody's watching, right? So that is all about human behavior. So, to your point of whether it can just be plugged and played, at max, you can paint the walls and you can put a plaque at the entry, right? Beyond that, if you have to actually talk about it as behaviors, it has to get into actions. It has to get into behaviors. It's about how people behave, right? So that's why this structured process actually makes the whole effort deliberate. You're looking at each area. Okay, if I'm talking about communication, are we going to maintain candor or are we going to maintain diplomacy? The immediate thing people will pick up is, we want to be very candid. But, other aspects of dilemmas that you have resolved actually show that you want to have that happy family culture where nobody feels intimidated. So then how do these fit in? Right? So those are kind of things that we do. Most companies, majority of the companies I've spoken to, when you ask them, okay, where do you see yourself? Do you want to be a pro sports team or a happy family? Pro sports team sounds very fancy, right? And it's like the in thing for every company or a startup to say. And then we ask, okay, so in a pro sports team, every player has a role, and if they don't perform, the person has to leave that team, right? And you get somebody else to play that role. Are your role definitions so clear? You say no. We all work together. We collaborate. Which is going closer to the happy family, and nothing wrong about it. Right. But you cannot keep saying we want to be a pro sports team and say that no, we're not going to fire people. We'll give them chances. We build or work on relationships. So even in a sports team, relationships are important, but performance is key. In both places, it's the team that wins. But how you get the team to win, will you compensate for others' gaps or will everybody be a high performer is a question. What do you do about your talent? If somebody is non-performing, do you let them go? Very easily. These are deliberate decisions that the leadership has to make, right? And so for us, each of these workshops, every time we do, it has been very fascinating because you actually see that revelation happening for the founders and the other leaders in the room, right? They started off with one stance. When we get into the details, they realize, oh, this is our comfort zone, this place where we want to operate. So at the end of it, they'll say, okay, yeah, probably we'll take some parts of this, some parts of, so along the spectrum. And, that's where we actually tell very deliberately that when you're resolving a dilemma, it's not picking one end of the spectrum. You could choose to be somewhere along the spectrum. It's important to define where do you want to be. Over a period of time, you can say we'll move closer towards this or closer towards that, right? So that finding their way along the spectrum, which is where they're comfortable, which is where they think they can maximize their productivity, is the beauty that comes out of these workshops. So, very recently we completed a workshop with we were talking to the co-founders for some feedback, and they said, you know what, when we started, we thought it was all clear in our heads. So, we said,
that's
okay, let's see what comes out. And for us, we realized that even the founders are not completely aligned. So while we did the workshops, they spent equal amount of time in the background actually debating and discussing and resolving those things among them. So they said, it's not just the workshops that you did, but it's the kind of conversations it triggered.
Right.
And that for us was very powerful.
Right. And, I think you mentioned that, but I just wanted to make sure that is, put out very clearly. In these, workshops, do you ask them to clarify their stance or do you recommend something that this is how you should be?
Yeah, it's never prescriptive. It is their culture. It is a culture, the identity the founders want to build. It's their entity they're creating, right? So it is completely left to them. But only thing where we prompt is when there are conflicts between. So for a particular dilemma, they've taken a stance, like I was explaining about candor and comfort and sense of security in the organization, right? So whenever there are conflicts like that, we point out, hey, there you said something like this. So where do you want to be? But it is never prescriptive, and that's again beautiful because for it's their ownership. The high sense of ownership that emerges from that, right? Because the bunch of leaders, 10, 12 leaders in the room are actually co-creating the culture, which they will forever stand for. because we say discuss, debate, but at the end of this, we will have to come to a conclusion and then move forward.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is fantastic, Sirisha. We will do deeper dives into what comes out of these dilemmas resolution workshops. I think the biggest thing that people should also know that these workshops will involve soul searching. So they will need to commit time to do this as well. But what comes out of these workshops is something which they're going to hold dearly for their lives. I think my takeaway is also to figure out a way, to get this to my ice cream vendor so that, he understands that, yeah, I don't want to pick one of those two. 60% of, chocolate praline and 40% of mint chocolate is the one that I deliberately want to pick, right? So on that note, let me take this recording and, show it to my ice cream vendor. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks, Harish.
If you like this, we know you care about your and your team's future relevance. You can find us and click on the subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. There are two ways to enter the insider group of friends of CTQ. A Telegram channel where you'll get daily tidbits that help you think about future relevance, and our weekly email newsletter called the Upleveler. We've got some fabulous testimonials from our subscribers. We share special discount codes for CTQ compounds and exclusive invitations to our events on both these channels. Just go to choosetothink.com, that is think with a Q, and you'll find all the links to subscribe. You owe it to yourself.